So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to start to create the neck, okay? So here we have our pattern so far. This is what our piece looks like, right? We have our armholes and our armholes. We should have ended off here, and so we're going to start on this side. This is the right side row. You should have ended on the wrong side row, and our next row that we're going to be working on is a right side row, okay? So we should be here. So the pattern says to start your work on the right side row, work in the next 24 stitches if you're small, 25 if you're a medium, 27 if you're a large, 28 an extra large, and 29 an extra large. So for me, because I'm a small, I will work 24 stitches in the pattern. The remaining stitches, so let's say this is 24, okay? The remaining stitches, what we're going to do is that we're going to put the remaining stitches on a stitch holder, okay? Stitch holder. All right, so for me, the remaining stitches are 53, for a medium, 56, large, 60, extra large, 63, and extra large, 66 stitches on a stitch holder, okay? So we're gonna work here for now. So the instructions say, work in the pattern. We're gonna work 2 rows, decrease 1 stitch at the neck edge in both rows. So here's our thing so far. We have our neck edge. So we're creating the neck right now. So our neck will be somewhere in the middle here, and our neck edges are here and here, right? So we're going to work 2 rows and decrease 1 stitch at the neck edge in both rows. So as I said, right, if we look at our piece, we're starting on this side here, and we're going to work 2 rows. So the first row, what we're going to do, so let's say we go to the first row, what we will do is we're going to work, begin the row like normal, work the row all the way till you get to the last 2 stitches. At those last 2 stitches, we're going to do a decrease, right? Because at the last 2 stitches, we are here at our neck edge. We're going to do a decrease. So 24 stitches, for me, for example, will be reduced to a total of 23 stitches because we did a decrease, okay? So that's the first row. The second row, we're going to start our second row, start our second row like normal, and then we will begin with a decrease once again because we are at the neck edge. So we're going to do a decrease. So our 23 stitches will turn into 22 stitches, right? Do a decrease and then continue our second row like normal in the pattern, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So that's the first part, right? The second part is pretty similar. We're going to work 5 rows and decrease 1 stitch at the neck edge in the next and every following alternate row, okay? So that means that we're going to continue the patterns for the next 5 rows. Let's say this is 1, okay? We're starting again, number 1. We're going to begin the row like normal, make it all the way to the end, up to the neck edge, do a decrease. Then we're going to begin the next row. We're not going to do a decrease. Okay, so number 1, the first row we will, number 2 we won't, 3 we will, 4 we won't, 5 we will do a decrease. So number 1 we do a decrease, number 2 we don't, so we begin the pattern like normal without any decreases, work all the way to the end. We turn our work, begin row 3, work all the way to the end, and row 3 we do a decrease on the last 2 stitches. Okay? Then we're going to turn our work, begin row 4. We're not going to do a decrease. We're going to get to the end of row 4, turn our work, begin row 5, work our way all the way to the end of row 5, and then do a decrease at the end of row 5 on our last 2 stitches. So in the end, you should have, if you're working a small, you should have 19 stitches remaining after this last decrease on row 5. If you're doing a medium, 20, a large 22, an extra large 23, and an extra large 24 stitches remaining after our final decrease on row 5. Okay? After that, what we're going to do is we're going to continue this section here without shaping until the armhole measures for a small 23, for a medium 25, a large 28, extra large 28, extra large 29 centimeters. ending in a wrong side row, okay? So I'm going to continue. So for me, for example, I'm going to continue my pattern without making any decreases, without making any changes, just continue it like normal, all the way until I reach 23 centimeters for a small, 25 a medium, 28 a large, 28 an extra large, and 29 extra large centimeters from here straight to here. So for me, that to there is 23 centimeters. Okay, for me, because I'm a small. You will make yours all the way up to the desired length that you are creating. Okay, and again, it's from here, from when the sleeve begins. Okay, not from here, from here. All right, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to meet you at the end of this section, and we're going to continue the next part. Once again, you're ending in a wrong side row. So here we are, we finished part of our sleeve. I've done my 23 centimeters from here to here for my size small. You would have done the required length that you need for your size. We finished on a wrong side row, so now our next row would be a right side. So looking at the piece, we have the right side row facing us with the front facing us, and our string is over here on this side. Okay, so this is what your piece should look like so far. All we have to do now is we're going to bind off like normal, and then we're going to weave in the tail, and then this side will be complete. Once we're done that, we're going to work on this side here, the other part of the sleeve. The middle section we're going to leave. We're going to keep it on our stitch holder, and we're going to work on that part later on when we get to the neck section of the tutorial. But for this part, for the other side of the sleeve, it's going to be the exact same thing that we did over here. For a small, it'll be my 23 centimeters. For your medium, large, extra large, or extra large, you're going to do it for your required length. And again, it's the same pattern that we did here, the same instructions, okay? And I will reiterate that to you once we finish binding off. So here we are ready to bind off. What we're going to do is do a normal knit binding off, okay? So just in the first one, just do a knit. Knit stitch. The second one, do another knit stitch. Take the first one and pull it over the second one. Like that, like normal. Take the first one. Sorry. Take the first one, pull it over the second one, okay? Knit. Take the first one, pull it over the second one. Knit, take the first one, pull it over the second one, okay? Knit, take the first one, pull it over the second one. Alright, so continue doing that to the end, and I will meet you there. So here's a tip. As you saw, my casting off was kind of wobbly. To get it a nicer, smooth cast off, all you have to do is when you do your knit and you're ready to pull over, okay, pull this yarn, give it a little tug and pull to keep it tight, and then it will smoothly slide over. Okay, once again, I'm pulling this part as I bring the yarn over, and then you can get a smoother cast off like that. Not like the wobbly thing I showed you previously. Okay, so that's just a little tip. Now here we are on the last one. We're going to do this exact same thing. Do a knit. Okay, and pull over. There we are. We've got our last stitch right here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the yarn. Okay, and leave a bit of a tail so that we can weave it in. So I cut the yarn, and then you're going to take your yarn needle and just put it in like that, okay? Now what we're going to do is give yourself a little bit of space here, because we're going to take the yarn and we're just going to put it through the hole there just to secure it like that, okay? And then we'll pull it tighter. So now that's secured like that. Now we're just gonna weave it in. Because this is gonna be a seam, I'm gonna recommend that we weave it through here, because when we attach, because we're working on the front now, when we attach the back, it'll be part of the seam, so it'll be kind of be hidden inside the work, okay? So just weave it through the stitches. Like so. Okay, these knit stitches like that. And what that's going to do is going to secure your work nice and tightly. So just keep working on this for a little bit. We don't need a whole lot. Maybe 3, 4, 5 words is okay. And that'll secure it nicely. Like that. So once you're done, you can see the piece is all tidy. You can't see the end. We're just going to cut it off and begin the next part, which is the other side of the sleeve. So here we are, ready to work the second part of the sleeve, the other sleeve. As I said before, this middle section we're going to leave for now. For me, I left my stitch holder here, just that separated the sleeve from the middle section. If you took it off, that's okay. But the instructions say, once we finish casting off, which we did on the other sleeve, with the right side facing, and this is the right side is facing us, we're going to work on the remaining, if you're a small, 53, a medium 56, a large 50, a large 60, extra large 63, and an extra large 66 stitches. We're going to work on those remaining stitches. We're going to, out of those remaining stitches, we're going to slip, if you're a small, 29, a medium 31, a large 33, an extra large 35, extra large 37 stitches onto a stitch holder, and we're going to rejoin the yarn to the remaining, if you're a small, 24, medium 25, large, a large 27, extra large 28, extra large 29 stitches. So we're going to rejoin the yarn to those remaining stitches and work in the pattern until the end. Okay? So what that means is that this part here we're going to leave on a stitch holder. This part here we're going to get off the stitch holder and we're going to work in the pattern. That's what that means. Okay? So let's just work on that for now. So I'm going to cut the yarn. I'm going to cut my stitch holder, my string. And I'm going to attach this part to my knitting needles. I'm going to attach it all the way up to here. And again, once again, this part we're going to leave on the stitch holder. So to attach it here, what we're going to do, so just make sure that you're following with me. The needle is facing this way and the center is right here. What we're going to do is turn the work around so that the wrong side is facing us. So here you have the wrong side is facing us and our needle is pointing in the opposite direction this way. Take your yarn that we're going to reattach. Give yourself a little bit of a tail and fold it like that. We're going to begin with a knit stitch to rejoin here. So when we rejoin, it's going to automatically work the next row. But the pattern says for the next row, work 2 rows and decrease 1 stitch at the neck edge in both rows. So it's the exact same pattern as we did for the other sleeve or the other armhole. So we're just following that again. But it says decrease the first stitch for the next 2 rows. So we're working the first row now. So what that means is we're going to have to decrease while we join the yarn. Okay, so insert your hook into the first 2 stitches. I'm doing a knit decrease into the first 2 stitches like that. Put your yarn around the hook and pull it through. like this, okay? And then take your loops off like that, okay? First one's done. For the next one, we're going to look at the stitches that we have here to get ourselves back into the pattern. So depending on the number of stitches you have and which stitch you're on, yours might be different. But if we look at mine, just to give you an idea, to get back into the pattern, we have 2 purls and 2 knits, right? So we know that the next one is going to be a purl because the pattern is 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits, etc., right? So we're going to do a purl. So to do that, we have to do the reverse of what we did, the opposite. We're going to take our yarn, we're going to bring it to the front, like that, and the needle should be in the back. We're going to insert the needle in the back of the loop of the stitch, right? Like that, okay. We're going to wrap the yarn around, and we're going to insert it through that stitch, like that, to gather it. Then we're going to slide the stitch off, like that, to get that purl, right? Right, so I'm working the tail in as we go, just so that it stays secure. I'll do that for one more stitch, and then I will stop that. So if we look at the next one, we'll notice that we have 2 purls, 2 knits, and then we have 2 purls. So we know that the next one is going to be 2 knits, right? We can confirm that because we just made a purl, right? A purl and then a knit, right? To do that, we're going to bring the needle to the front, our working needle to the front, and our yarn to the back, and we're going to insert it as if we're doing a knit stitch. Wrap the yarn around the needle and pull it through like that. And then take the stitch off the needle like that. Okay? Now you'll see that these 2 stitches here have 2 stitches, right? One of them is the tail that we're working in, so it's like the fake stitch. So we're going to treat these 2 stitches together like it's 1 stitch, same with here. Okay? So now, I'm not going to work the tail anymore, that should be enough. We're going to continue the next one. So we're going to look at our pattern. We have 2 knits, so we know that the next one is going to be a purl. So to do the purl stitch, we bring our needle to the back, we bring our yarn to the front, we insert our needle from the back to the front, and we wrap the yarn around the needle, okay, that, and we pull it through the hole. And then we slide the needle off, the yarn off, like this, okay? And that creates a purl. So the next one, we have 2 purls, and we're going to do a knit stitch. Once again, we're just getting ourselves back into that pattern. To do the knit, once more, I'll show you. The needle goes in the front, the yarn goes in the back. We insert our hook like we're doing a knit stitch. We wrap the yarn around the needle, and we pull it through, and we slip that stitch off, like that. So just a tip when you're rejoining, when you're doing the knit way, to create a knit one and you rejoin, remember things at the front, our yarn's in the back, you insert it as if you're doing a knit. You want to wrap your yarn this way around the needle. So don't do it this way, because when you do it this way, your knit stitch will look like this. It'll be stringed on the wrong side, right? We want the knit stitch to be like that, right? So to do that, let's just reverse. So to do that, right, when you insert it, you wrap it around this way, okay? And you pull it off, and that'll give you the knit, the correct way to wrap it around the needle, like that. The purl, okay, when we do the purl, all I'm doing is just wrapping it around this way from the bottom up like that, okay? And then pulling it through. That'll give us the correct purl size, okay? So that's just a little tip. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. So we're going to continue all the way to the end, and that'll be our first row. So this is row 1 we're working on. The next one will be row 2. And remember, at row 2, we're going to decrease at the end of these last 2 stitches. We're going to do a decrease. Then the pattern is going to be the same, as I said, as the previous armhole. After we work our 2 rows and we decrease the first stitch at the neck edge in both rows, so that's what we're working on, 1 and 2. We're going to work 5 rows, decrease 1 stitch at the neck edge in the next and every following alternate row. And at the end of that, you should have 19 if you're doing a small, 19 stitches, 20 if you're doing a medium, 22 a large, 23 an extra large, and then 24 extra large stitches remaining. Once you've done those 5 rows, you will continue without shaping until your armhole measures for a small 23 centimeters, for a medium 25, for a large 28, for an extra large 28, and an extra large 29 centimeters, ending with a wrong side row. And after that, you will cast off in the pattern, just how we cast it off here. Okay, the exact same way. And once you're done that, I will meet you here. This end tail that we're working on right here that we can just weave it in, okay? So I will meet you at the end of this armhole once we have cast it off and finished our, for myself, because I'm doing a small, 23 centimeters. For you, maybe it's a 25, 28, 28, or 29 centimeters. I will meet you at the end. And once we're done that, we will have finished the front, and then we're finally going to move on and start working on the back of our sweater. I will meet you at the end of this section. Here we are, the middle section. I'm just going to take this. So if you use string, there's really nothing you have to do other than just reattach the string so it doesn't become undone. So we're not taking this off the stitch holder. We're just going to reattach it. My little stitch marker here can go away. We don't need that anymore. And I'm just going to reattach this middle part onto the stitch holder, onto this, the stitch holder, just so that it doesn't get undone, and then we can work on it later when we need to. Okay, just like that. So here we are. I've finished rejoining my yarn. I just wanted to clear up any confusions because there is an exception here. So just so that we're all on the same page, I've been working on the back side. So here's the back side of my work. On the wrong side, this is what my piece looks like with my needle facing this way. So we have our yarn reattached. If we were to turn our work around and begin knitting, our new needle is on this hand here. Right, I haven't been knitting like that because the way I've been knitting is I have my yarn in this hand, my string attached to it, and my new needle ready, so it's in the opposite hand. So my yarn is in the opposite hand and I want to bring it over to the new unused needle, right? So in this case, because of that, we are not turning the work over. We're going to take our new needle and just start knitting like normal to the end this way. All the way to the end here, do our decrease, and then we finished our first 2 rows of this part. Okay, then after that you want to do your next 5 rows, and then you want to continue without shaping. All right, so that's just a clarity in case there are any confusions.